If you bought the Operation Blackwind Box for Infinity, the game, and you're looking to expand your Steel Phalanx army, this is the video for you. Roll that intro. Welcome to Corner Case. You're in the hobby corner. I'm your host, your knife to a gunfight, and your best friend Deck. So you bought the Operation Blackwind Box. You've been having fun with your friends playing some smaller games. You're ready to play some bigger games, some 300-point N4 Infinity games. How do we do that? In this video, I share my point of view on which models to buy first to get up to 300 points, and I've created two lists as a starting point for you guys. So, I'm assuming y'all have the Operation Blackwind models, and time of recording you will get, otherwise you do have the Beyond Blackwind models as well. I'm assuming that you have the models, so you would like to play them, so I'm putting as many of these models in the list as possible. I think it's important to start by saying that much of Steel Phalanx is out of print, but many characters that are out of print I think are very critical to what I think the Steel Phalanx playstyle is. For example, Ajax is in 9 out of 10 of my lists, so is like Machaon, and these models are very hard to come by now. That being said, time of recording, I'm making these suggestions based on which models are in print. I'm trying to stay in print as much as possible. Now, the Infinity community and Corvus Belli are very accepting of proxies, but if you follow that line, then sure, just like proxy your whole army. Just pick whichever list online is like the most min-max list, proxy whatever you want. But this video here assumes that for whatever reason, whatever your reasons are, you like WYSIWYG or you like collecting, it assumes that you want to have the correct models. And with that out of the way, let's finally get into it. So my first suggestion is the Rebots box. If you are new to Infinity, these remotes or fighter crawler robots are pretty staple in most sectorials or factions, mostly as like cheerleaders. They're cheap orders. The cheapest in Steel Phalanx or Aleph in general is 7 points for the Flash Pulse repeater. So because they're pretty cheap, you're pretty willing to trade up with them or try to trade up. They're also pretty fast, so if you're playing a mission like Supremacy that cares about positioning, you could very quickly coordinate order a bunch of them up the board to score points. And Steel Phalanx ends up usually being pretty elite. You have a lot of points in fewer hitters, so you end up having like these cheerleader units to try and fill out like as many efficient orders as possible that you can pump into your Ajax characters. So Rebots, not the most exciting, but it's gonna show up in like a lot of your lists. Following the trend of just supporting units, if you get the Aleph support pack, that's with the Sophatex, the 3 net rods, and the 2 Yudbots. So the Sophatex is actually like a doctor engineer in OSS and vanilla Aleph. It's not taken in Steel Phalanx, but I tend to use it as a proxy for Machaon or like Akmon. The reason being, people recognize the Sophatex as like a doctor engineer. So if Akmon and Machaon are out of print, then I'm definitely just going to use whatever people recognize as doctor/engineer thing. Plus, the Sophatex is equipped with a combi rifle, so that's like a pretty common gun. Machaon and Akmon are both great profiles. We use them often in Steel Phalanx, and being able to proxy them is huge because you're definitely never going to get one, because if you ever see one on the internet, I am outbidding you. I promise. The rest of the box is super utility. Net rods happen a lot. They used to be the #1 choice cheerleader in this sectorial. They still are kind of at 6 points. They used to be 3, but at 6 points, they're still just providing a veteran order. So they're the cheapest veteran order you can have. You might not always have 2 these days, but you're probably always going to have 1. And then lastly, Yudbots. Yudbots synchronize to doctors. I tend to take Yudbots a lot to like support some of my long range units. So you kind of hide your doctor and then you have your Yudbots supporting like your sniper over there. So Yudbots happen like pretty often as well. So this is just like pretty good supporting box. So that's your theme of cheerleaders so far, is you got your Rebots and you have your Aleph support pack. Finally, first model I'm recommending that's actually a hitter. This is Atalanta. Never leave home without her. Atalanta is an absolute force to be reckoned with, one of the best, if not the best, shooter in the game, and I don't even know how to build a list without her. Atalanta comes in 2 flavors. The first version is the total reaction version. This means she's throwing 2 dice on ARO. With her ballistic skill, she's usually throwing 2 18s on ARO, which means she's mostly locking down like one whole side of the board. Of course, she can be hard countered by, getting snuck up on from behind. but in any straight shooting fight, she is probably going to win. The other version is the hidden deployment version. The hidden deployment version is pretty fun because you can like obviously camp her in the best spot, but your opponent can't actually interact with her until you reveal. So your opponent can be left like playing around this empty spot where she might be. And if you do have her, when you do finally reveal, you can just automatically delete whatever you want. So hidden deployment version. So with all that out of the way, we can go into this first list that I made for you guys, 300 points, using as much of the Blackwind box as possible. The intent of this list is to just yes and the Blackwind box. So however the models play in that Blackwind box, this isn't really adding any new ideas. It's really just like yes and. So it's more. It's getting whatever playstyle you're used to, if you've been playing that, up to 300 points. I will say that I don't think that the Blackwind box by itself is very indicative of what I would consider a Steel Phalanx list, and you'll see that in the second list, but here's the first. Lastly, I'm not like the most competitive player of all time or like list builder, so if you have other ideas that you think would be helpful for the community, please put them in the comments. For people who are beginners or may find that thing useful, please, thank you. So group one, first off, you have this duo of Hoplite HMG Lieutenant and Forward Observer Mackie. Now, of the Lieutenant options that are not out of print, that are in print, you only have Hoplite, Hector, and Achilles V2. So I figured you have the Hoplite from the Blackwind box. It's the coolest looking thing in the Blackwind box. You probably want to play it. So here's your Lieutenant, Hoplite, paired up with Forward Observer Mackie. Realistically, you're probably camping these guys, and then if you need to later, you can drop off the Mackie to like do some button pushing. Next, we've got the Thyreos with Mine Layer. So I did playtest this list actually with the hacker version, and while the hacker version did work, it almost didn't. So I think the Mine Layer is a little bit more interesting, gives you some options that Steel Phalanx doesn't normally have. Again, committed to finding out what's good about the Thyreos. So I don't hate it. Seems like the internet does. It's in there. Next, you have the Ecdromos. This is a really great model with parachutist and combat jump. It's almost guaranteed to do whatever it needs to, wherever it needs to be. I've picked up the hacker profile here for maximum flexibility. Need to get to an objective? Probably he's already there. Probably he can roll better because he's a hacker. Need to get the classified? He's there. Got an enemy tag? Say no more. And with the chain rifle, Ecdromos can also punish clumsy deployments. Next, the meat of this list is in this 4-man fire team. Your main hitter is your Red Fury Mackie. On your active turn, they'll be throwing 5 dice shock rounds. I assume Corvus Belli will be releasing the Mackie in its own blister soon. If not, I would proxy this Mackie with like the Agema Marksman in the Blackwind box. Seems to work too. It's like a good shooter with a visor. People will know that. I've got Pandora in here because exciting. Pandora is a wild card, can be linked. Pandora is super utility. Got that +1 burst medikit, can hack, can heal, imposes a -6 on anything when she does a dodge. So really great utility unit, Pandora, in this link. If you didn't get the Blackwind pre-order and don't have Pandora, that's your problem, but it's also mine, and I actually use the HVT from the Dire Foes box to proxy Pandora. And finally, the fire team rounds out with 2 Thorakites. I'm not personally a big fan of Thorakites, but they're in the box and they serve a utility purpose here. First, you have your light rocket launcher guy. So the light rocket launcher, there to punish clumps of models with the template mode, has continuous damage, so really not bad. And the other Thorakite is the paramedic. So a lot of 1 wounds in this fire team here. Pandora may draw a lot of fire. She seems popular right now, so could draw a lot of fire. And if she goes down, then you still have like a medikit guy to take care of things. So overall, trying to keep this little 4-man fire team pretty robust. Not to mention 4-man is the minimum for 6 cents, and then you get all your +1 bursts. It's a good fire team. Your group 2 is support staff. So you have 2 flash pulse rebots. Deploy them defensively. You have hidden deployment Atalanta. She's a real big hitter. Hidden deploy her in the right spot, reveal at the right time, and automatically delete whatever you want to. Then finally, you've got your Dactyl linked to your Yudbot. You can use your Sophotex to proxy your Dactyl. Put them on opposite sides of the board, never together, in places that could plausibly be your Atalanta spot. Play that shell game, and then one of them camps Atalanta when she finally does reveal, and if she ever goes down for whatever reason, well, she's back up again. So that's the first list I made. It takes just the idea of whatever's in the Blackwind box and just adds to it so it plays like exactly as just more of the Blackwind box. Like I said before, I think that the Steel Phalanx playstyle is really, really close combat centric, and so this next list reflects that a lot better, using mostly the same models. The only addition is the Probot, which it's like another cheerleader. It's an 8-point robot, but it's the only model in your army usually that will be like a size 4, so it's not that easy to proxy it. But it just got a recent resculpt, and the new plastic models are not as expensive. So Probot, size 4, it's a repeater, it has baggage, so in some edge cases, you will be able to use it to reload. So this new list, again, I think it is a little bit better than the last one and also more indicative of the playstyle. Group 1 has 2 attacking vectors. The first attacking vector is, again, your shooting fire team, this time a 3-man hoplite and 2 Mackies. The hoplite is, again, your heavy machine gun lieutenant guy. Then you have your Mackie forward observer for button pushing if you must need. And then you have your Mackie missile launcher for if you decide to sit back and play this fire team defensively. So you can Rambo with the HMG, or you can sit back and missile launcher. The second attacking vector is this Euduros fire team, and this is when we start cooking with gas, baby. Euduros is one of my favorite models in Steel Phalanx, second only to Ajax. He shoots great, and Mimetism -6 really helps with that. He's got NCO, which means if he's leading a fire team, you can use your lieutenant order to activate the fire team. He's got a double action close combat weapon with his CC-23 and martial arts 4, so if he gets into silhouette contact, he will murder. And he's got eclipse grenades, which guarantees he will get there to do the murdering. So Euduros, absolute great hit piece. Love this thing. Euduros is supported first by your base profile Myrmidon. That's your 16-point chain rifle, smoke grenades, CC-22, martial arts, mimetism guy. And for 16 points, this thing wrecks. You can even just like throw a Myrmidon 16 points at like almost anything if you're already in close combat range, and they will make their points back plus more a lot of the time. Cannot speak highly enough. I used to hate the Myrmidons, love the Myrmidons. Second, Euduros is supported by Akmon. So Akmon is out of print, so choose how you're going to proxy them here. Maybe use your Sophatech, or I would just use my Sophatech. So Akmon is an engineer profile. Euduros is structure, you'll notice, and that means that when to heal up Euduros, you use engineering, not doctoring. So the game plan here is definitely stranding Euduros in the enemy deployment zone after deleting the most important thing. So once that happens, Akmon is there to heal him back up if anything bad ever happens. So the way you pilot this fire team, basically, you take first turn if possible, then you decide whatever is the most important thing, and you deploy to march up against that most important thing. Because you're a 3-man fire team with Euduros, you get +1 burst on the Eclipse grenades. So you get to throw 2 Eclipse grenades. Nothing can see through that. 0 visibility zone, which basically guarantees that you'll be able to march up to wherever you need to be and delete whichever thing you need to delete. Now that you're in their deployment zone, now if you've never done this before, I know the first few times I did this, I felt like I was stranded in their deployment zone. But after a while, you start to realize that actually this starts to kind of sap their resources and tempo when they have to deal with your big boy in their deployment zone. So it's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun thing to do. Try it out. The rest of the list is the same as list 1. Your group 2 is your support staff. I had to point down to the Agema marksman for the sniper profile, but you have the same package, the sniper plus the doctor Yudbot situation. So that's like a pretty solid defensive gun. So long video, but I hope it was really helpful. This is 2 lists that use as much of the Blackwind and Beyond Blackwind boxes as possible and adds the fewest amount of models to that. We have a list that is just Blackwind plus, mostly shooting and objective grabbing, and we have one list that is, I think, more of a Steel Phalanx list. You have your shooting attacking vector, you have your defensive shooting, and you have your attacking vector that is just dumping your big boy in the deployment zone for close combat shenanigans. Now, again, I'm not the best list builder. I think these are pretty close. I did do some play tests, but Everyone is different, and if you do have better ideas for list building, please put them in the comments below. I'm sure everyone will find them useful. Happy Steel Phalanx. Enjoy your knife to a gunfight army. I know I've been enjoying it. And hopefully we get some good updates in the future. I'll be reporting on Steel Phalanx as much as possible. That was the video. Hope you enjoyed. Join the Discord, join the Patreon if you would like to, like and subscribe. We love hanging out with you. Sometimes we're desperate, and we'll see you next time.
I am ready to subscribe again.